like my shelf of shame, I'm going to estimate because I'm not near my collection.
Wait, you get it's not a countable number? That's hilarious.
It's a big shelf, is what I'm hearing.
Welcome to the Impromptu Board Gaming Podcast. Today we have a little change in format. We're going to be doing a mailbag episode where we just answer questions from the audience. Let's go straight into the questions.
David asks, Andrew, you seem to be the co-op player of the panel. I just started to introduce my game group to co-op games. We've played Hanabi, Just One, and of course Pandemic. Can you give a few suggestions, recommendations for co-op games that steadily increase in complexity to get my group ready for a game like Spirit Island? Alrighty.
Oh. Great question, David. Okay, so based on my mind jumps all over the place, and actually my co-op knowledge, I was trying to think of, I was trying to answer this question, thinking of co-op games, and my knowledge, it probably isn't as big as I'd like it to be, but that's okay. So I think for steadily increase in complexity, if y'all were a fan of Pandemic, I'd recommend another co-op game by the same designer called Forbidden Sky.
For the Forbidden series, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. So that's the first one. I was just thinking if I wanted to describe it or not. But there's a cool little bit there, so it's probably similar in game length to Pandemic, maybe a bit longer. The neat thing here is you're sort of going to be physically building a circuit as you play the board game. And so yeah, that's one cool thing. And the other part of it is that you're building the board as you play. So that's not always a standard experience for board games, so that could be pretty cool for y'all. After that, this is where I struggle, the sort of next step, the sort of like in-between step between Forbidden Sky and then a bigger one like Spirit Island. The one that comes to mind that I think is not as often talked about and is worth checking out is The Big Book of Madness. You're wizard students in wizard school, and you've stumbled upon this sort of forbidden book, you've opened it, and now things are falling apart, and you have to find a way to sort of beat back the big baddies coming out of it and close the book before your whole school gets torn apart. Yeah, so that one I think is a really nice stepping stone because now each person has a more sort of like unique character with their own sort of special powers. You'll see a little bit of that Pandemic Forbidden Sky, but I think this takes it to another level. There's definitely neat cooperative elements there as you like learn new spells and you have to like time the spells well and stuff. There's cool stuff there.
Oh, I do remember that from Spirit Island too. Yeah. Good call.
Yeah. So then after Big Book of Madness, I was kind of thinking you could jump straight to Spirit Island from there. One potential in-between step would be Aeon's End, if you like deck building games like Dominion. But honestly, at that point, Aeon's End is already big and complicated. It feels like a similar scale to Spirit Island, such that I think you could go straight to Spirit Island from Big Book of Madness. Aeon's End, as it is a deck builder, is probably a bit more familiar and will feel more intuitive and easier for you to pick up if you are familiar with deck building games like Dominion or Clank. But it is a sort of very grim atmosphere. And I'd say the sort of big differentiator, right, Aeon's End is it's grim atmosphere and it's really about you sort of overcoming the challenge. Where Spirit Island, you're really sort of like embodying this guardian spirit. Because in Spirit Island, the characters you play as these spirits, the top down, the thematic design is very, very strong and very cool. And Spirit Island has some different play patterns, a different feel of playing patterns in terms of like, there are these fast and slow powers, which like the timing element is not something you see often as well.
I remember that.
But really, I think, I think that would be it. Forbidden Sky, Big Book of Madness, and then from there, you're probably good enough for Spirit Island. In some cases, you could just go straight into Spirit Island as long as everyone knows that it's going to be a bit longer and more complicated of a game than y'all are used to.
Yeah, good point. I think, part of it, and this goes for like most games, you're just trying to teach your gaming group like new mechanics, different ways things could work, different ways, just how the game could possibly unfold. So the real thing is about holding their attention so that when you introduce something as complicated as Spirit Island, like they don't feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So, a way to do that could be through IPs or stuff like that, just holding people's attention, I mean. So, like, Marvel United is a pretty fun one. It introduces deck building, and it's at least something your group's probably going to be familiar with that IP. One I liked, and one of the co-op games I'll play is Nemesis, and that's sort of almost a direct port from Aliens. So if you're into Aliens, you could, and that one's pretty complicated. The one caveat is it's kind of expensive and it's a big investment. So you really want to be relatively sure your group's into it before you actually invest in it, because yeah, that game is expensive. So
It's even easily available. You got it from a Kickstarter, right?
yeah, I did get it from Kickstarter. There's actually a new Kickstarter coming up for different aliens for the game.
Oh wow.
So they'll be obviously selling the base game again, and then you can pick it up. There are definitely places I've seen it in retail stores too. It's findable. It's just an expensive game. So
Okay.
you listed 3 games here. What was it? Just one, Hanabi and Pandemic. So it seems clear you know your group pretty well. You're ramping them up slowly on relatively easy games to much more complicated games. So, just see what your group is interested in, I would say. Like, is it going to be like something IP-ish with like Star Wars or Marvel? Or is it going to be something more mechanically driven?
A couple other quick notes. Since David, your group has enjoyed Hanabi and Just One, I'd highly recommend checking out Letter Jam, which is a word game in the vein of Just One. It's a cooperative word game, Just One, but it has this sort of Hanabi style mechanic where, so you're trying to sort of guess the letter, guess the word, figure something out. The letter you're trying to guess is sort of facing away from you, kind of like the way you hold cards in Hanabi. You're facing away from you, so all your teammates see what's going on, and you're trying to figure out what you have in your hand. So I'd highly recommend Letter Jam. It's very cool.
I think that's a great recommendation too. Plus, it's mechanically simple, so it can be like a warm-up game to lead into something more complicated, or a cool-down game, or an hour or less left in the night, and you want to play something to really kind of like cool off and take it easy from something so heavy. And Letter Jam's a great recommend there.
And then the last thing regarding to Spirit Island, there is a product, I think it's called Horizons of Spirit Island, something like that. It's meant to be a much simpler and easier way to get into Spirit Island itself. So if complexity is an issue, I might consider starting that, and it's going to be a cheaper investment. It's a whole game. Like, it is the Spirit Island game, just with a much simpler set of spirits to streamline that process of learning the game.
Horizons. Oh, I haven't even heard of that one. It's like a prequel or just a streamlined version?
I think it's a streamlined version, and I think you can get it at Target. There was like something weird and special with that, and I think it's only like $30 to $40 as opposed to like 60 plus for the base game. So,
Oh, okay.
cheaper investment, smoother process, easier to get new people on board.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds perfect. I mean, thematically appropriate, and it'll help you sort of set up to teach for the tougher game, and then is right in there. So Horizon, yeah.
Like if you learn how to play Horizon Spirit Island, you know how to play the game. You know how to play Spirit Island.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's your game. that's David's game. All right. Coincidentally, David also asked, Paul, you said you like deduction in games, but you don't like deduction games. This seems to be a weird distinction. Can you elaborate?
Okay, I have said both. I do have a couple of hangups with deduction games. For a deduction game to be good, it needs to really organize the information the player is using really well. So, for example, Mystery of the Abbey is a game that does this really well. It has a very simple sheet with all the suspects.
Oh, nice.
You can just cross them off as you go along, and you can just concentrate on playing the game and making deductions. I mean, that's where the fun is, and that's really where the focus should be. A game that really doesn't do this well was Sleuth.
So this is an older game, and I think it's had multiple editions. So I think later editions they did actually come out with a cheat sheet, an organizing table to actually, organize the information. But the edition I played just gave you a piece of paper and it was just up to the players to organize the information as best they could. So playing it was just a chore. And the thing that really bothers me is when a game does it right and then another game just does the exact same thing badly. I mean, think about it. If you're designing a deduction game, like one of the most basic things you can do is play other deduction games and see what they did well and see what they did badly and then, use their good ideas, hopefully improve on their bad ideas. So really, it can really come down to implementation.
Okay.
A smooth, well-organized game is always going to beat a sloppy, or at the very least, bare bones kind of game, is it really doesn't facilitate the organization of the information well for your players.
I see.
The second thing I don't like is the nature of hidden information in deduction games. It tends to make the game rather delicate. What I mean by this is, have you ever played a deduction game and you are asking the other players questions and someone just screws up? Maybe they just made a mistake, or they misspoke, or they thought they had one piece of information but they really didn't, and it could be an honest mistake, but it kind of ruins the whole game. I mean, take a game like Alchemist. That is a really heavy, really tough game, and that's fine. But if someone screws up, it can be pretty devastating to the entire group playing it.
Right, given how heavy that game is, right, from what I've heard.
And I really personally don't like that.
Ooh, yeah.
But, if your game group never makes a mistake, I guess it's fine. So it doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, I've definitely played deduction games where it's like, hey, wait, didn't I ask you this and you said this? And they're like, oh, shit, sorry, I totally misspoke or messed that up. It's, yeah, I'm not looking to get mad at anybody, but then, the game itself, if it's that fragile, then you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, that's huge.
As far as, let's see, deduction in games, so what I like about that is there are definitely games like Dungeon Lords, for example, where you can look at someone else's board, see what they need, and make simple deductions as far as what actions they're going to go for, and predict, where they're going to place their worker placement cards. And then you can sort of use that information to strategically play your own cards. So it's like that, at least, is a very simple, just it gives you a little bit of an edge, not a very big one. And if you take little edges and add them up, it can be pretty big and significant throughout the whole game. So I like that in games where the game sets up situations where you can make simple logical deductions that give you a little more information to help you decide what to do. That is a much more appealing and enjoyable situation or game mechanic or game state than, okay, the whole goal is to figure this thing out, and there's, at least thematically or whatever, there's that's the whole point. I'm figuring this out, and that in itself is the point of the game, as opposed to, hey, if I figure this out, this might score me a few more points, and that'll win me the game. That second scenario, I enjoy much more in general. I mean, there's nothing wrong with deduction game. It's a perfectly legitimate genre of gaming. I've just had a few bad experiences with it, and I feel like I've seen it done well, so it really annoys me when I see it done poorly. So, if a game gives you a nice sheet and it organizes the information you need to make deductions well, I'm like, okay, I can play this game. But if they don't do that, or they just go, hey, this is pretty freeform, good luck, you figure it out yourself, then I'm like, okay, you couldn't figure out a way to help your player out here, because you're really making that initial barrier to entry like really high, and not for a good reason. So that's my opinion on it. Or that's what I find is the distinction between the two. Like, if a deduction game is done well, they organize the information in a way that's easily digestible for the player. Great, I'm into that. I'll play that game. But if it's too freeform and it doesn't organize the information well, I really don't like that. And then if it's just a regular game, I like elements where you can look around at the board state or another player's tableau and figure out, okay, this is probably what they're going to do, so I should do this in response, and or like play accordingly. That I really enjoy games, and it can't be too game breaking. If it's too game breaking, then I think someone capitalizes on the situation and someone else ultimately like doesn't get to, so it's very like zero sum in that way, and I don't think that's an enjoyable experience for the whole group. Like, someone's clearly coming out better than that, and as long as it doesn't happen too often, that's okay. But if it just creates situations that like isn't fun for everybody, then I'm not the biggest fan of that either. So I hope that makes my position on that clear, because I do think there are good deduction games that do it well. But there's like a lot that don't do it well, and that generally annoys me. So
It's interesting when you mentioned your definition of like deduction in games that you like. That sounds a lot just like the sort of player interaction that happens in a lot of games, I imagine. I guess the more Euro type games.
So they're just games that I think do it better by giving you the right amount of information. So what that means is there's some games that give you just all the information, and then you just crunching numbers at that point. And then there are some games that just gives you very little information, so you have nothing to go on. So the right amount is obviously somewhere in between, where you have just enough to make a few logical conclusions.
To go back to Dungeon Lords, each player gets 8 cards representing the 8 possible actions. 2 of the 8 cards are always locked and face up for everyone to see. Each player is going to choose 3 action cards out of the 6 they have available to them, and the 3 you choose must go into slots A, B, and C. What's in slot A gets placed first, what's in slot B gets placed second, and what's in slot C gets placed third. On every action space, there are 3 available spots, and the second action space in general is the best. It just has the most efficient payout for rewards versus resources. You can also look at every player's tableau to see what resources they need, try to guess what actions they're going to take. And you already know that the second action space is the best space and incentivized for everyone. So that's a lot of good information to make a pretty fair, educated guess. But you still don't know exactly which slot each player is going to play their action cards in.
Cool.
If it's just a perfect information game, you're just number crunching there. But if it's like no information, then you're just sort of blind guessing, which also isn't fun. So you want somewhere in the middle, and you want there to be some variability where it gives the other players have a chance to surprise you, which can be fun in and of itself, and it also gives you the chance to guess exactly right. And when you make that, exact right deduction, that feels really good too. So I think you can have fun with like sort of both sides of being right and wrong, which is tough to pull off, right? I mean, that's just giving the right amount of information to pull that off is really it's tough in games. I think it also goes towards like how auction games sort of fail. If what you're bidding on is worth the same to everybody, and it's a very static and easy to calculate amount, then how much you should bid for it is just very mathematically based.
Mm-hmm.
But if the lots you're bidding on are of different values, slightly different values to everybody, then what everyone's going to bid is going to be a little variable, because they're not going to bid this much if it's not worth it for them, and they want that real bad, so they're definitely going to bid at least this much. You can make those little deductions, and that's, I think, really fun. But if you were like, no one knows how much money anyone has, and you have no idea how good this lot is for them, then you're completely blind bidding. It's a very delicate balance that some designers do really well, others designers do less well, and then sometimes, you're just guessing, and then you hit the right balance, and sometimes you don't hit the right balance. I think, yeah, that's just where a lot of playtesting has to come through, and then you have to like figure it out. It's weird. It's a weird balance because you don't want the game to be too predictable and you don't want the game to be too unpredictable, and that's really just a tough balance to find for any given game.
Yeah, it is. Based on everything based on everything you've said and what I know about you, like this does explain why you like Not Alone so much. I think it's part of it, anyways.
Yeah, Not Alone is a particularly well-designed game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think everyone who plays it will agree that there's like multiple reasons. Yeah.
It's a super easy to teach. The decision tree is really simple. But there's like the possibilities as you go through get smaller and smaller. So it becomes easier for one side to predict you as the game progresses. So it's about the individual players sort of trying to outguess the other guy, get through, and when's the right time to reclaim cards. I mean, those are just all interesting questions. But then it's hard to do that and be easy to teach because, I mean, it just offers a really great balance of some information, but not all the information. And the fact that as the game goes on, you're more likely to get caught. So it steadily increases the tension of the game, which I think is also just critical and brilliant design overall. So there's a sense of progression because the more you play, you're like, oh, he's totally going to be able to predict. He has a 1 in 5 chance at the beginning of the game, and now he has a 1 in 3 chance of guessing what I'm going to do. And the fact that you go from 1 in 5 to 1 in 4 to 1 in 3 is just, there's a tension that builds there that's just great.
It's so apparent too as you play.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, I get it. Like it is a very intuitive feeling game, I think.
So yeah, Not Alone. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, definitely go and check that out.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I say it's well designed is that it supports 2 to 7 players and it plays well at all numbers.
Oh, yeah, that is rare.
Right, some board games, it's like, 2 to 5, but it's actually only best at like 2 or like 4 or whatever. But this is a game 2 to 7 players, which is a bigger number than most games support, and it plays well at all numbers.
I feel like that's a really good point because I think most games in general are sort of designed for 4 players, and then once you have that core 4-player experience sort of like honed, well designed, then they add things to expand it to the 5-player count or reduce it to the 2 or 3-player count, which can be like, it just feels a little tacked on sometimes. I do like that more sort of design and development companies are like keeping that in mind and designing accordingly as you go. Gallus asks, David, in episode 3, Kingmaker, your hot take is just to do nothing. If that's the hot take, what's the non-hot take? So let's back up a little bit. David, why don't you go ahead and restate your hot take for the audience, and we'll go from there.
What I was trying to get at was the hot take for king making is that whatever the player wants to do is fine. There's no like rules that a player needs to follow in terms of when they find themselves in a king making situation. And so the non-hot take would be essentially what most people feel like is the proper way to play. And so my point is, or my thought is, that players can play the game however they want, and there aren't like specific rules that you must follow when playing. Now, this is just in terms of game mechanics and like playing in the game. I'm not saying, like the social rules, like being polite and that kind of stuff outside the game. Those rules all still apply. But in the game, if you're in a situation where your actions might decide who's going to win, that's irrelevant. You play however you want. and whatever decision you make is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense because we came up with like multiple reasons why of like possible scenarios and types of actions to take if you're in that king making position, right? Like, do you go for your own personal high score? Do you just like take someone down for spite? Are you just So it makes sense that everyone would be different, and those are all valid, as you're saying.
I thought the consensus we came to was, of course, there's no like hard and fast set of rules. People do what they feel like they're gonna do. I think the question here, though, is from the given a let's say a 4-player game, one person is going to be in the king making position. The question comes from the other 3 players. I think is what it is, and that is whatever that one person decides, you're supposed to just be okay with it and ultimately just do nothing. I think that's the perspective of the question. Like you're not supposed to respond or encourage or whatever, or you do nothing. You let them make their choice and then that's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So their question comes down to what's the non-hot take? So if yours is the hot take, what's the non-hot take? Go ahead.
The non-hot take is right. Okay, so yeah, if what you described, which is an interpretation of just do nothing, because it was unclear if it meant do nothing, like in the game, like just pass your turn and just stay out of it, or what you said. And if the interpretation of the question is what you said, the non-hot take is, in general, I feel like most players think that no matter what, you should just do whatever you can to maximize your score or put yourself in the best position possible, which is also fine, of course. But I feel like if you want to take revenge on someone who wronged you earlier, or if you just want to kind of ignore your position and just do something cool, or whatever your goal is in the game, or however you want to play, that's fine. It's not, you must just try to maximize your own position no matter what, or that's how you should play.
Okay. I hope you thought that was helpful, Gallus.
It's a very complicated topic, really.
I wonder where Gallus is from. Oh, maybe it's Hungary. Okay. Sorry. Some of the analytics have what country downloads these.
Oh, cool.
Oh, neat. Hungary, huh?
So, yeah, apparently somebody from Hungary might have seen our podcast and download it. All right, well, cool. Good luck, Gallus. Hope that informs your future K-making situations. All right, so those are all the sort of addressed to a specific person questions. Why don't we go through some of the um, everybody questions? So Stephanie asks, what game have you guys recorded the most plays for? If it's not the same game, what game have you guys logged the most hours for? Okay. Andrew, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think for me it's pretty. Well, depends what you consider, I guess. But I think for modern board games, it'd either be Great Western Trail or Spirit Island.
Okay. Oh wow.
I just remember like 2 very distinct periods of just like me and my player group like specifically playing that game like quite often. And obviously each playthrough of that game is like fairly long as well. So and I'm a
Yeah. I was surprised when you said that because like those are 2 longer games.
yeah.
Do you feel like you have like a more hours logged in one or the other?
More and more of the
Oh wait, why don't we start with I guess Great Western Trail is what 90 minutes to 2 hours depending on how well the people know the game.
yeah. And some of the folks I play with are on the slower side, so it's closer to like 3 for like a 4-player game. But it really depends, right? Like I've played this with like multiple groups of friends. I've been lucky enough that multiple friends enjoyed the game, so and like same with Spirit Island in that regard.
Spirit Island, you would say averages around 3 hours?
Oh, Spirit Island is probably like 1.5 to 2. Again, depends on player count and familiarity and whatever else.
Okay. I remember, I think the first game is longer because you're learning it.
Mhm.
But after that, and everyone gets in the rhythm, it does move pretty quickly.
Yeah, but the nice thing about Spirit Island is that right, you can sort of adjust the difficulty as you want, adjust the difficulty and complexity as you want. So
Oh, okay.
both of those games have very long teaches.
Yeah, that too.
Great Western Trail usually takes me like 20 minutes to half an hour, and Spirit Island is about the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I've had some rough teaches for Great Western Trail, like really rough.
It's not easy. There's a lot of parts. It really comes together like as you play, but it does come together, and I think it's a fantastic game. That's me.
All right, do you have a guess or a sense of like how many plays you would give each one, or are you one of those play recorders?
I am not one of those play recorders. I'd guess close to 50 for each.
50 for each. Wow, that is a good number. That's a lot.
Yeah, the question is, for me, the question is not, I guess, valid in a sense because I'm not really a play recorder. I'd have to kind of guess. But guessing is kind of fun because for me, recording the most plays, it's really like there's been a lot of games that either myself or my play group has just not religiously, fanatically played like constantly for at least like a month or even like a summer. And so you can kind of go through a lot of different games. It's kind of like a timeline of my gaming history. So early on, I definitely played a lot of chess, and I believe that counts.
Sure, there's a board game geek entry for that.
When you're in like in a chess club playing for several years, going to tournaments, you play a lot of chess. I have no idea how many times I've played. A lot of blitz, that kind of stuff.
Oh, hundreds then, right?
Certainly, yeah. There was one summer where two of my friends and I would just play Settlers of Catan Cities and Nights like almost every day
In person?
in person. This is long. This is like 20. This is in the 90s,
Well,
late 90s.
Catan came out in '95, so the Cities and Nights come out in the '90s. I think it's early 2000s. Yeah,
Maybe early 2000s. Whenever Cities and Night came out, we kind of played it quite a lot, probably over 1,000 hours, to be honest.
over 1,000 hours. So it's like, is that over 1,000 plays, or around 1,000 plays?
No, a play would take like 90 minutes or so.
Okay, you guys are screaming at each other trying to trade for a while.
Yes, we made some incredibly creative trades over time. Got really creative. Even trades that lasted over to the next game and stuff like that.
Wow, that's like extreme futures trading.
Yeah, it got pretty intense. We were way ahead of our time.
Funny enough, now you mentioned it, like me and some of my friends had a Settlers of Catan phase as well. And then I don't know if this counts, but I was really big into Magic the Gathering for a long while.
And okay, and then other games just come to mind, like short games that people are like in a session, especially when they first came out and it was so new that people would play like 8 or 9 times in a row because took like 15 minutes. Definitely make this list. So the first game that comes to mind is definitely Dominion. When that game came out, people were playing it all the time and then constantly playing like over and over again, like 4 or 5 times in a row, every time they played. Another game was Race for the Galaxy. That game is just, yeah, you could just rapid fire that game as well. It was a lot of fun. So stuff like that. I'd say nothing recently has kind of caught fire like those games did back in the day. So those would be my answers, pretty much.
In order, it was like chess, Settlers of Catan Cities and Nights, Race for the Galaxy, and Dominion.
Yes.
Or Dominion and then Race for the Galaxy.
I think Dominion came out first.
No. Race came out first.
Oh, Race came out first. Okay.
Dominion was 2008.
And Race was...
Dominion was 2008, sorry. Race was earlier than that. Yeah, Race was 2007.
Oh, okay. It's possible I played Dominion first. But either way, about the same time. So.
See, mine probably going to be, well, okay. If we're going by David's method, I definitely was a big Go player when I was a kid. So I learned it when I was 11
Oh, wow. Yeah.
or earlier. 11 or early. I think 11 years old was when I was first taking a class for it. And I learned how to play before that. And we kind of played like not seriously. And then I saw the class for it and I signed up for that. Played Go well into adulthood. So there's probably hundreds of plays at least.
Awesome.
I don't know about 1,000, but definitely hundreds of plays. And a game would last a couple hours, honestly. So you can go ahead and double the hours count on from plays, and sometimes longer, especially in like just tougher games. I did record plays for a while. Number one's going to be Tichu
That makes sense.
with over 400 plays. Jeez. And then Haunted Teutonica's second with 130 plays.
And Teacher's not a short game. The well, usually, I guess you could theoretically could end it in like 3 hands, I guess, but that's pretty wild.
Those would be my two. Okay. And then, yeah, I think those would cover hour-wise as well. Yeah. Next question. Here we go. Philippe.
I think that's probably Felipe.
Felipe? Could be Felipe. Okay, Felipe. Are you guys pretty into crowdfunding? Any projects yet to be fulfilled? I definitely went through a crowdfunding phase. So I got a few games from crowdfunding. I could take a look at my collection. I remember a friend got me Alien Frontiers as a gift. So that would be sort of the among the first ones. And then I have Clans of Caledonia, which was a pretty big one as well. Let's see what else. Yeah, I have a few. You guys have a few?
I had a few. Yeah, like you, I think all of us that were around when Kickstarter started going nuts, right around Alien Frontiers, I guess. That was the first regarded successful Kickstarter for board games, I think. Yeah, back then, oh, you could get really addicted to just backing projects, and then they arrive, and you're like, woo, and then you play them. But, just like many things in board gaming, it got way oversaturated, and there were a lot of shady Kickstarters, a lot of unfulfilled, or just games that didn't live up to the hype, or just were clearly unfinished, perhaps. Yeah, you can. I think there's threads on all kinds of pitfalls and, and shady things that happened in crowdfunding over the years.
It became pretty standard practice that Kickstarters would not fulfill on time.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, I think the joke also became like they would be late 3 to 6 months, and then after a while, it was over a year. What became like a not unheard of standard. It was it got pretty bad.
Yeah. Then the pandemic happened. The Suez Canal happened. A lot of stuff happened, and so yeah, I'm pretty much. It's very rare for me nowadays to do anything crowdfunding. There's two reasons for that. One is everything I just said. I'm just more wary of it, and I can wait. I don't need to back stuff and lose track of it. And second, I work at a board game cafe, and I can use their ordering system to buy games, and it's pretty. And most of the time, I can get stuff that like if it's not an independent publisher, if it's like a crowdfunded from a more reputable publisher, I can usually just get the game with all the fixins.
The retail version at some point, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no, even better than it'll be like the Kickstarter version.
I mean, the Kickstarter version generally goes to retail too.
But not always. I have done a couple recently, and I'll probably will again. One is for Splatter. I got Horseless Carriage. I haven't played the physical copy, but I have played it online. Yeah, I almost did Weather Machine too. That's Lacerda's. But stuff like that, heavy games from super reputable publishers that have or designers that have constantly put great care into their games. There's only a few designers that have really earned that. Just if their name's on it, I'm interested in buying it. And one of them is Splatter.
Oh wow. Okay, I just realized I can go to my Kickstarter account and look. So
Yeah, I did that. I don't have any Kickstarters currently, so I have officially kicked the habit. Although for another question later, there's another habit I haven't kicked yet. So stay tuned for what that is.
Andrew, where are you on Kickstarters?
I think I was late to the party. For all the reasons David said, it's generally something I don't do much, generally speaking. But I have backed a few projects. There's the Everdell Spirecrest expansion.
Nice.
It was like pretty soon after I first got Everdell and played, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I saw the expansions, like, nice. It's like one thing, right, like that makes it easy for me to decide what to buy or not. I think I generally have a pretty good sense of what I want and whether I have a good sense of whether this will be fun for me and if I will get like a meaningful amount of plays with my group or whatever. So that Everdell Spirecrest expansion, that was one. There's another game called Bullet, which I thought was a pretty unique and cool concept, so I went for it.
Wait, is that Bullet Heart?
Bullet Heart, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I thought that was cool, and I was very glad I picked it up. And there's one really big one I'm waiting on right now, which is the Divinity Original Sin board game.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, based off of the video game series. This one's hilarious. It's a little over 3 years late because they went through a huge design rehaul like partway through.
Oh, nice.
But it'll finally be coming in late November when I'll happen to be out of town, so then I'll have to wait with my friends to actually try it. But yeah, that's the big one. Again, generally not a huge fan, but every now and then be like, okay. And then that happened to be one of the big ones. It was around the time we got into me and my friend, we were both playing the video game a lot. It was just like, why not? This sounds awesome. So hopefully it is.
I also play the video game a lot. I really hope it's good, and if I'd like to try with you whenever you get it.
Cool. Yeah. My friend and we went 50-50 on it. So chances are I have more time than she does. So
I didn't get it because I was traumatized by the Witcher board game.
Ooh.
Which turned out like I love the game and the franchise is cool, but the board game is awful.
Oh no.
Is that the new one, the recent one, or is that a different one?
No, it's not. It's not recent. As of 2023, it was several years ago, but it had Ignacy Trepacek's name on it, and so I'm like, oh, this is gonna be cool. No, it was terrible.
Dang.
Not cool. Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, unfortunate. C'est la vie. And that's why I don't crowdfund anymore.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. Like, there's very little incentive to crowdfund these days. Either, because crowdfunding itself is still taking a risk. You're kind of betting on it's going to be good. You're purchasing it, and then whether or not it's good is a big question mark. And hopefully it is, but I think we've all had experiences where it's really not. And then if it's really good and it's really that good and you want it, it'll probably go to retail. So if it does, I mean, you can definitely pick up something. You might pay a little more for it, but ultimately, I think you save money by not investing in projects that are not good, right? I'd rather pay more for a game I really want than buy 3 games and then 2 out of the 3 I kind of so on, and then only one of them being like one I really enjoy. So I don't mind paying a little extra if it gets to retail and say, oh, okay, this is really popular, it's really well received, and it's done well. You could definitely buy things through the cafe, and you can get it at wholesale. And I definitely go to the cafe as well, so you can play all the games in the library. So if they get the game, then there's no real need to buy your own copy. You can just play it at the library. So like the barrier, like there are just so many things that just incentivize me to not invest in Kickstarters, because it's like you're taking the risk. There's no place to store all this stuff, and then if the board game cafe gets it anyway, you get to try it before you actually buy anything. And if it's really that good, it'll probably come out on retail, and then you can get it anyway. So it has to fulfill a very like specific set of criteria to really tempt me into like, oh, okay, I might not see this later, and I might actually want to invest in it now, which is pretty rare. I mean, for a game to be that specific. And then, yeah, how it fulfills is also very annoying. So I definitely stay away. I might back one project a year, maybe. Yeah, that's about it. Like, I might buy one game a year. I just looked through my account. Oh man, this is a little embarrassing how much money I've blown on this stuff.
Oh, why don't we get to one of these other questions by James?
Sure.
Do we have any games on our shelf of shame? And Paul, why don't you start?
Oh wow! I guess this is good to follow up after my Kickstarter rant. Let's see, I have not played. I have a couple of games on my shelf of shame. I have not played Black Rose War, which was supposed to be the Wiz War replacement. I have not played Knockdown the board game, which is this goofy dexterity game I thought looked pretty funny. And is that it? Double checking, double checking. I think that's it. Those two I have not played. I'm gonna double check my account to see if there's anything else. I don't think so.
I'm imagining you with a literal shelf of just 2 games on it. Like, that's very impressive to only have 2 games on your shelf of shame.
So funny enough, I actually bought the current shelves I use. I bought it on Kickstarter. So that fulfilled.
What? No way.
There's this Boxstone company that was selling shelves, and they store the games horizontally instead of Calyx shelves that store it kind of vertically.
Uh-huh.
So I actually got that on Kickstarter, and it works great. It's a little on the expensive side, but it works fine. And then, yeah, those are pretty much the 2 games I have not actually played. Everything else I've played. What about you guys? Any shelf of shame stuff on you guys' side?
Hoping to hear more from your Kickstarter list, but
Sorry. I did miss that. I didn't answer the other part of the questions. Do I have any projects on the on to come? I do have two. I have two. I have one from Mind Clash called Septima. So that's like a new. You can look it up on Kickstarter. It's called Septima, Septima, and a second one called Galactic Renaissance. Right. That's it for me.
I'll let Andrew handle this one first.
okay. Yeah. Okay, so real quick, Shelf of Shame. Is it just games that we haven't played, or is it things that we bought and that we regretted?
I think it's just we own a copy and haven't played it at all.
Okay. If it's that we haven't played at all, there's 3 games I got because a friend was moving and they were just trying to get rid of stuff. So I picked up 3 games for free. And I guess technically I actually just got a 4th one yesterday. But I didn't buy them.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's true. I guess you shouldn't count offshore because you just got that yesterday.
No, sure, yeah. Yeah. But there's 3 games I picked up from my friend because he was trying to get rid of stuff, but I haven't played those yet. But of all the games that I've bought, I have gone at least a couple plays in with each of them. Because again, I tend to be pretty astute about what I want and if I think it'll be worth it for me and my friends. And my library's also a lot smaller. I got into this hobby a lot more recently than y'all. I only have like 16 or so games in my collection.
So you said none that you've purchased, which is a really good habit, and 3 that you haven't purchased. So which 3 are those?
Block by Block, which I think was Kickstarter, funnily enough. That's a local, yeah. And then Yomi and Dice Forge.
Oh, Yomi, that's the deck building one? Sorry, it's not deck building. You just, each character has its own deck.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've played that. Okay.
Yeah, they just came out with a Yomi 2.
Oh, really?
I think it's on early access in Steam. I don't know if there's a physical version of it. There probably is, but I haven't looked it up.
Funny. But yeah, those are the 3 that I got, that are on my shelf, but I haven't played yet.
I think Yomi's a little tough. It's like 2-player, so you have to have somebody else that's kind of into it, and then if you've never played it, it's going to be a little bit of a tricky teach.
Yeah.
Maybe, but the game is also very fast. Like, it shouldn't take more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, the game's pretty fast.
Yeah, this is true.
Well, the thing about Yomi is, like, I feel like it's a great game if you're really into it. And then if you're really into it, it's really easy to teach, right? Generally, people who are excited about it be like, okay, this is how this works. This is how this works. This is really fun. Be great, blah, blah, blah. But then if you got it for free and then you didn't actually, like, you haven't played it before, then that enthusiasm's a little lost. And then the game as a whole becomes a little trickier to teach and get right the first couple times. And
Yeah, I definitely haven't played in a while, but like I do have friends who would definitely enjoy the concept.
So the count is 3 for Andrew, sort of, and 2 for Paul. David, why don't you round this out?
All right, so I alluded to this earlier, but
Oh, this is the other one on the list thing. Other question.
the crowdfunding addiction has been kicked, but there's a shelf of shame addiction, sort of. There's a thrift store addiction that has not been kicked. And this is just looking around, like my shelf of shame. I'm going to estimate because I'm not near my collection.
Wait, it's not a countable number? That's hilarious.
It's a big shelf, is what I'm hearing.
Well, I have to go count it. It's not. It's a big shelf, but it's also scattered because like I have games kind of just sitting in general sections or areas, and the biggest area is in a different room. I'm just in my room, so this is like a third of my collection or so. But even here, like overall,
How big is your collection?
I don't know that either. I'd have to go count it.
Impressive.
It's impressive to most people, but to like us, because we know certain people like Brad, it's not that impressive. But there's got to be categories to the shelf of shame because there's first of all games that are kind of recent that I just recently got. Well, technically it would be on the shelf of shame. There's got to be some leeway, right? Like you can't just expect to play a game right away.
Okay. Let's say it's a game you've had for more than 3 months.
Right. Okay. I don't remember when I got most of these games because time is an illusion ever since the pandemic. But I'll let that slide. Second is games that are technically on my shelf of shame, but only because I haven't played my copy.
I wouldn't count that. I think the implication is that you have the only copy available.
Don't count that? Okay. Well, there's that implication. Like, there's the bought a game and never played it, but there's also like, so in terms of like playing the game, yeah, you've played it. You just haven't played your copy, which is debatable because some people count the shelf of shame as just something that you paid money for and you haven't used, right? So you regret buying it. No, it's up to you. It's up to interpretation. I'll exclude games that I've played other people's copies, especially within the friend group, but I just haven't played my copy. And then I guess it was brought up earlier, but games that I've bought and that are on my shelf of shame that I regret, and ones that I don't. I don't really regret any of them, to be quite honest. But in terms of like, there's games I look at and it's like, why haven't I played that? And others like, I bought that and I didn't expect to get it played. I want to, but I don't. So I'll name a couple of those first. For example, I got Antiquity.
Oh, you got Antiquity? That's a old school splatter game.
That's right, yeah. And it's going to be a challenging sell to get people to play. I know Rob. There's some people that really want to play it, but you have to get those specific people together. It's going to be a very long game. It's going to be a long teach. So it's I didn't expect to definitely get this played or anything.
Yeah, I played it. It's good.
Yeah, Antiquity is kind of rare. It's Splotter, it's not the easiest to get, although it's not impossible or anything. And then there's other collector stuff like I got the Omega Virus.
Oh, wow! You're really reaching back with that one.
Yeah, it's an old school. It's the first game. I don't know if it's the first game. It's one of the popular games with a battery powered and it talks to you. Is it cooperative? I think it might be like the first cooperative. I think it's cooperative. Yeah, I think it might be one of the first cooperative games.
Oh, it's cooperative.
It's not cooperative. Oh,
you're racing to get off the space station. It's not cooperative.
Oh, okay.
Everyone has the same goal,
right.
But you're not exactly cooperating.
And then in this category are all the campaign games I got, which essentially got canceled out with the pandemic. It was much harder to meet people. You could play some online. And then recently all my campaign efforts or legacy efforts have gone to Frosthaven. So I don't play these other games. I have Aeon's End Legacy, Clank Acquisition Incorporated.
Oh, nice.
That legacy. I have something called Legends of Trindvarg. I have Sleeping Gods.
Oh, you have Sleeping Gods?
I do, yeah.
Wow, okay.
But I haven't played it.
There's a new Kickstarter coming out for that, like a sequel series or something.
Oh, all right.
Full game.
I'm not going to back it. So looking around the room, let me list some games that are on my shelf of shame here. Hostage Negotiator, Sniper Elite, the board game.
Oh, you have Sniper Elite. Okay.
I do, and I want to play it. I love Hidden Movement, but I haven't. Deal with the Devil. Several exit and unlock games. Raiders of Scythia, Bonfire, Katara.
Oh, Bonfire. Raiders of Scythia. That sounds familiar too.
Pickle, The Magnificent. What is that? Oh, Arkwright the card game.
Arkwright the card game. Okay.
Yeah. Acropolis. I guess another category would be expansions that haven't played, but I have played the base game. I have this. I have the Space Alert expansion. I have Root expansion. Brussels 1897. Conspiracy and Stop Thief. Millennium Blades.
Millennium Blades, really? Okay.
Yeah. I've had so many people tell me I should play it. It's right there. We haven't played it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you'd like it. It's like a simulation of a CCG kind of thing. It's
Oh, hilarious!
Right. Oh, I know all about it. Just haven't played it. Yeah. All right. Ready, Set, Bet. Picture Perfect. Decorum.
that was really big. Ready Set Bet was really big last year.
Yeah, it's still big. You just need a lot of people shouting. Forged in Steel.
I don't know that one.
Oh man, that's kind of a grail game actually. It's like a collector's thing where it's one of those games where like if you're in the know, this is the heavy game to get. It was kind of like D Mocker way back in the day. Oh, are you a Euro? Are you really a modern board gamer? Have you played D Mocker? Kind of thing. Anyway, let's see. Keeper, Key Flow, Rap Gods, Little Circuses, A World Without End, Monsterlands, Kingdom Rush, and Toledo.
Kingdom Rush?
Kingdom Rush.
Did you get that from Derek?
No.
Oh, okay. You got it separately?
Yeah.
Funny.
Because he had like a really big set of that game and was selling it for a while.
Yeah. So no, some reason, yeah, at that cafe there was a whole set of Kingdom Rushes with all the expansions. Someone bought the base game, so now we're just trying to sell the expansions,
So funny.
and they were there for a very long time.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, I saw the base board game at a thrift store, and I really do like the game Kingdom Rush. It's a very fun tower defense game on the computer. I think you can get it on your phone too. And yeah, and then Red Cathedral's over there.
Wow. So you have like a couple dozen then.
Yeah, I'd say that.
All right.
And that's just in this room.
Okay. Big shelf for David. then.
Yeah, I might as well. My whole collection's a shelf of shame, really.
All right. James, if your shelf is smaller than a few dozen, then I guess you're doing better than David. All right. What do we move on to? Randbauer. Let's see. In our game group, we have what's called a once a year game. These are generally games that are too long to play regularly. Do you guys have some of these? Oh, sure. Anyone want to go first on that one?
Sounds like you had an idea, Paul.
I mean, I can go first too. Essentially, I think this game just boils down to games that require planning to play, as opposed to just you can just randomly. I think the biggest one is definitely, and we just played this recently actually because our friend Rob set it up. But it's Twilight Imperium 4, yeah.
TI4.
This is probably the general answer to this game. Although I know there's definitely some groups that play it like once a week or even more than that.
Once a week.
But it's still like probably like in high school or when you actually have time to do that. But yeah, like it's still on a schedule. It's not like let's just randomly play Twilight Imperium 4 whenever we feel like it. Back in the day, we used to play a game about once a year. It's usually for someone's birthday, and it's a game called Advanced Civ or Advanced Civilization.
Oh, yeah, I've played Advanced.
And that game, I think the box says it takes 8 hours. That's a lie. It takes usually 12 hours, 10, 14, 16 hours ish. It takes a long time. There's a lot of negotiation, a lot of weird, yeah. And so it's an event. You had to plan it, reserve some space, get some food, get to have some breaks scheduled in there, all the fixins, and yeah.
Right.
And so, yeah. So the timeline of that game, there was Civilization. Then they made Advanced Civilization, which added more players, added a bigger map, and now, if anyone's ever inclined, they made a version called Mega Civilization, which goes up to 18 players.
18?
18, yes. They don't call it Mega for nothing.
Holy crap!
and yes, and takes about the same amount of time. There's a lot of the game that's simultaneous, so in general, 18 doesn't increase the time that much. But when you're talking like 12 hours, I don't know, whatever.
Wow.
But yeah, that's definitely where I'd lean to. Advanced Civilization, even though we don't really play it anymore. That's definitely a once a year game.
I played Advanced Civ. It definitely is. That there's this really funny thing about it where there's a trading element. So basically you expand on this map, and if your territory gets enough people in it, you build a city, and then the number of cities controls how far up the commodity. So if you have like 5 cities, for example, you draw a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5 commodity, and then those commodities basically you sell them for value to get more stuff. And the set collection element in that is like extreme, like it's exponential the way the value goes up. And then so people really want that, like the 5th card or the 6th card in the set, and people just get so intense about it they start screaming at each other over trades.
Holy crap!
To add an element of sort of like hilariousness, the designers threw in what are called calamities into the cards you draw. So there are things that happen to everyone or one person, and then that person chooses a few things, and they're just bad things that happen, and you can trade them as commodity to another person, and it's hilarious. Some of the results of those trades, and it's just
Oh
so
wow.
brutal and so like so crazy. But yeah, that game takes a really long time. It's fun, but yeah, it's definitely a once a year game. It's so hilarious. Um, yeah, I have a couple too. Let's see. StarCraft, the board game. That's like a 4 hour game or more. Yeah, like it's 4 more hours. Our favorite way to play was usually 2v2.
I haven't seen you bust that out in a while.
So there are 6 sort of yeah, there are 3 races, and every race has 2 factions, and then we pick. I have played at 6 players. Don't do that. So we played at 4 players, where everybody takes one faction, and then you team up 2v2. So it's kind of clear which way you're working together and playing, and then you fight and hopefully do well.
It should be noted that the game is out of print,
Yeah, yeah,
but it was re-implemented by a game called Forbidden Stars, which is now also out of print.
yeah. I mean, I didn't honestly like Forbidden Stars as much. I mean, it does a couple of things better, but yeah, I didn't like it as much. But that's just me personally. But yeah,
Yeah, I like that. I like that version more, but this is a discussion for another time.
yeah. Let's see what else. I have Star Trek Ascendancy. So that's a fun one. It's 3 players, but you could play more with if you just buy the expansion packs for other races in the game. But that takes a long time and needs a lot of table space. Oh, I have Samurai Swords. Samurai Swords. That's generally, I think we usually play that 5 player, and that takes like 4 or 5 hours as well. Oh, and Rising Sun. That was one of the Kickstarters I did support. It was very expensive, has a lot of fun miniatures, and I've only played it like twice, but it was pretty good. I liked it, and yeah, I think those would round out my once a year games.
I don't really have any. I honestly, my once a year at this point, it's not in terms of length, but just like what kind of slightly different game or like unexpected game would people want to play. And so I think Block by Block might be the closest because I think that one's a pretty heavier, longer co-op game. So people would be on board with that in theory. I think people like the theme. I think people like the co-op, but I haven't actually played a full game myself. I think I tried it briefly, when they were doing their Kickstarter stuff. But yeah, I think Block by Block would be the closest one for me. I definitely do not have anything on that grand scale. Maybe honestly, maybe potentially Divinity because that's going to be a campaign-based game, and
Or is each session that long?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, usually campaign games like it's long as in there are several sessions you need to play to finish it, but like each individual session isn't that long.
But again, getting people together and stuff. There was one that when I was with one of my friends, Descent.
Oh, Descent.
That would have been the
Okay.
once a year one. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, with campaign games, usually the individual sessions aren't very long, maybe an hour, like Pandemic. But because of the commitment and the effort to get people together,
Yeah.
usually people will play like multiple sessions
Yeah.
or multiple, days in the session. So then it takes like 5-6 hours.
Yeah.
That's fair. So yeah, those are our event games. Oh, and Diplomacy. I don't own that one, but I have played that, and that takes like 8 to 12 hours.
Oftentimes, yes. 8 to like that's a short game of diplomacy.
I've only heard.
I've seen diplomacy games take several days.
Woo!
Oh, okay. I mean, if you're playing it online, I guess you can do that. Then it's like several weeks or several months.
But no, it was in person.
Oh, several days in person.
Yeah, it's usually if you're at like a retreat or like a vacation or something, a place where people don't go home and then have to come back. They abandon the game for like 12 hours and then come back to it, play like 4 or 5, etc.
It's pretty specific because you have to lead the board state as is, or record it.
It's not terribly hard to record it if
Take a couple pictures. It should be doable. All right, and our final question, since we're skipping around, Tim asks, I like direct conflict games, but I'm not a fan of a lot of dice chucking. Can you guys recommend direct conflict games with non-dice combat systems?
Yes, I can. So I guess it sort of depends on necessarily what you mean by direct conflict, but there's some card-based ones I really enjoy. The one I mentioned earlier is Yomi. That could qualify. So the idea with Yomi, it's meant to be like the fighting game genre of video games. You're two characters and you're punching each other and trying to do cool combos and stuff like that. There's one I think that maybe does it a little bit better, which is the Exceed fighting system.
Oh, okay. I don't know this one.
In the Exceed fighting system, it adds like a little bit of movement, so you're actually like, moving around. Yomi, you can think of it as like rock paper scissors esque in ways, but that along with that sort of combo element. Whereas Exceed incorporates that bit of movement, so you have two characters on a line and you're moving around, and depending on your range, that tells you like what you can actually do and whatnot. After that, I would then recommend it's the Power Rangers deck building game,
Oh, nice.
which I think is a really, really cool deck builder with an element of sort of direct competition. So right, in a more traditional deck builder like Dominion, everyone's just kind of doing their own thing. Clank takes it a step further where everyone's sort of on the same map and you're sort of running around, racing around to grab this treasure and you can see where people are. But in the Power Rangers deck building game, you are sort of directly fighting each other in a lot of ways, not just the sort of more literal like attacking and defending from the card abilities you acquire during the deck building process, but even during the actual deck building. So one innovation they did in the sort of mark your row where you buy cards. So you're either a hero, i.e. one Power Rangers, or a villain. And some of the cards are going to be hero only or villain only. And so if you're a villain, you can't buy hero cards. If you're a hero, you can't buy villain cards, right? However, you can battle them and sort of deny them and take away that option from your opponent while also getting some sort of bonus benefit as well. So you're sort of very directly engaging with each other in a lot of fronts. And even the deck building, I think they do really well in that there's a surprising number of very exciting and tough decisions on your very first turn, which I think is pretty uncommon. And again, comparing to like Dominion and Clank, that's less of a thing. Your first turn is pretty straightforward, generally speaking, I think, in those games. Not so much in the Power Rangers deck building game.
David, do you want to chime in here?
Yeah, sure. I've been doing, while Andrew was talking, I was doing like kind of a quick search to kind of go over things like this. What I've kind of come down to is, depends on what you mean by direct conflict, right? A lot of games that involve area control are direct conflict because you're trying to be first or as close to, barely in second, or it's very dependent on how much your opponent has in there, but you're not really battling exactly, but there's definitely direct conflict. And a game like that I really like for a number of years is just Wallenstein or Shogun.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and that one you conflict by dumping cubes in a tower, so that's hilarious. But yeah, okay. But if you want combat, I got that. Through the Ages is one of my favorite games of all time. I think it's my number one.
Ooh.
And that has a card-based battle and war system.
It's more like you're comparing military value to military value, right?
But then some classic ones. I would recommend something like, I like Blood Rage, the Blood Rising Sun, and Ankh. They're all really good and they have
Eric Lang's Area Majority Games.
Yeah, they have a lot of direct conflict. Although it's more area control, it's not like I have my massive army going up against your massive army. I think that's kind of what it comes down to. If you want a war game, like a battle versus battle without dice, they tend to be more focused on the area majority rather than one army killing off another army on a battlefield.
All right. Right off my top 5 list, I would go with Kemet. So basically, everybody gets the same set of cards to start with, and there are various values. Your army goes into another space. You guys fight, and then your army's base number is just based on how many troops you have in there, and that's your starting point. Then each player, blind bidding style, puts in a card face down, and then you can also play which bonus cards you intend to use in the combat. Then you flip them over, and you just add up your values and see who has the bigger value. And then there's usually a second number, which indicates how much damage you inflict on the other side and how many of their troops die. So usually the default's like 1, and then there can be bonuses that give you more hits. And depending on what bonus cards each player plays, the winner of the combat may suffer more losses than the loser of the combat. And then the whole thing in Kemet is about drafting powers that turn into strong combos to do whatever you're trying to do. So Kemet's a really big one for me. I recent Kickstarter that fulfilled for me was Yucatan. It's from the same designer as Kemet, and it kind of does Kemet but like faster and more streamlined. And I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, if you can't find Kemet, you can find Yucatan.
Yeah, you can find Yucatan.
Yucatan's a website.
It does a similar thing in that you reveal cards, but the cards you reveal are generally get more varied because you're forced to continuously draw new cards from the combat deck. So everyone starts with the same 5 cards, but then and one card is reusable. So no matter what, you'll have one card at least. But if everybody just knows what value it is, it's going to put you at a sizable disadvantage. So you're incentivized to continuously draw new cards because every time you use a combat card, you have to throw it away. So in order to keep some mystery and some, unknowns in combat to surprise your enemy, you have to keep drawing cards, which is interesting. And then the cards provide bonuses. The bonuses can be about taking prisoners from the other side, and that's ultimately what Yucatan is about. You want to collect as many prisoners from the other side and sacrifice them to gain points, because that's the main way you get points. So you need to fight, you need to capture, and you need to sacrifice them to gain a lot of points. Winning the combat is important too, but it's almost secondary to just like gaining prisoners or gaining sacrifices. Generally, winning combat just gets you a better shot at getting more resources that lets you do more, which is good. But you could definitely have situations where the loser of the combat comes out better because they had more bonuses to capture sacrifices from the winner of the combat. And I like that type of variability where it is not obvious who's coming out better in the exchange. So those are two sort of direct conflict games that don't use dice that I really enjoyed.
Pretty
Funny
cool.
enough, my 2 Shelf of Shame games I think are direct conflict games. Black Rose War and Knockdown are both direct conflict games that I hope are good when I eventually play them. Yeah, there's also Wiz War. So Wiz War is much more.
Let's use a card system, yeah.
Yeah, it's much lighter. It's much like for fun and not to be taken like it's more whimsical, I guess. It's not really something you take super seriously, and it uses a really massive card system with a big deck. I find it a little swingy with the energy cards because the energy cards just are extremely advantageous if you're the one to draw them. So, but as long as you don't take the game too seriously, I think Wiz War can be fun too.
So there's no I'm trying to look it up on Board Game Geek's advanced search. There's no direct conflict under mechanic or category or subdomain.
Yeah, I think the question is just he said a specific thing, which is like combat system. So it implies that it's talking about a game with a combat system.
Yes. Well, there is a category, interestingly enough, called card-based combat resolution.
Sure.
And the top games there, Gloomhaven, which is cooperative, but you didn't say direct conflicts amongst each other. You can direct conflict against the game. Dune Imperium, which is an interesting choice.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's like an area majority.
It's a subsection of the game, but the game is excellent, and there's no dice, so that may be something you're interested in. Scythe's combat resolution is just pick a number on a dial, and that's how much you spend, but it's still winner take all. So how much do you spend? Has anyone played Oathsworn?
Oh, yes, recently started a campaign on TTS with some folks.
Oh, cool. How is the battle system in that?
So it's a cooperative campaign type game, to the best of my knowledge. That's how we're playing, anyways. The combat is pretty cool. It has some unique stuff going, but I don't think it's as relevant for the direct conflict. I don't think it's relevant for the question, but there's definitely some neat stuff going on there.
Sure. So, okay, I haven't played it. I've just heard of it, and it seems to be this big battle skirmish game, but it doesn't have dice, according to Board Game Geek, and it's called Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea.
I think that's a 4X game, which can have conflict. A lot of the conflict usually has dice, but if this one doesn't, then yeah, I guess it qualifies.
It's not listed on Board Game Geek. Yeah, it's by Scott Almus. It's kind of he does like the tiny games, right?
Who?
I think this is one of his first games where, and a lot of his tiny games are very combative, like not like war, like armies fighting, but like direct interaction. Like you will definitely mess with other people when you play. And Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea, I think was really one of his first big games, and it was pretty highly rated when it came out. But I've never played it myself. However, it might be something, Tim. This might be something you may want to look into.
Okay.
About two games that came to mind over the course of the discussion. One is a game I haven't played myself. It was one I sort of briefly looked at on Kickstarter, but it's called Senjutsu, and it's like you're two like samurai swordsmen, etc., trying to duel it out. So you're moving people along a little hex grid. You're moving your person on a hex grid board, trying to fight the other person. And from what I remember, the play works. It's simultaneous play, so you both play like a card face down. Once you're ready, you reveal and stuff happens. So multiple things that made this neat. One is that the direction your character is facing is important. And so like if you move away, then you're facing away, and so you have to do something to be able to then like turn around and stuff. So like facing matters. And then there's a really neat timing element too. So it's like if you're trying to defend against an opponent's attack, you first have to like correctly predict that they're going to attack, as well as there's a bonus if you can get the exact timing of the card. So the idea is that on each card play, there's a timing or like some sort of like speed factor, and whoever goes first wins or whatever. Or then there's some sort of tiebreak. But like for a defensive thing, there's bonuses if you can match the timing up with your opponent's attack, which I thought was pretty cool as well. The other game that came to mind is an old classic, Go. And that one, the amount of conflict can vary a lot. It's sort of ultimately a sort of area control type game, but one way to potentially go about sort of acquiring and claiming area is through conflict and sort of capturing your opponent's stones. And no dice involved there whatsoever.
Yes, perfect information. All right. Hope that answers your questions, Tim. I think that's all we have for this go around of the mailbag.
Well, hang on a sec. During this time, since the Shelf of Shame question, I found a bag with some games in it that I forgot about.
Oh, God.
And there's a Tiny Epic Western. I want to play that. There's this game called Three Sisters and Maskmen.
I do not know Maskman.
Oh, it's really cool. It's a trick-taking game, or it's like a shedding game. We're trying to get rid of your cards, kind of like Teach You, except all the cards are just a mask, like a color, like red, green, blue. And what happens is, let's say I play red. There's no value to red. It's just one red, and you can beat it with any color on your turn. But when you do, we arrange the mask to show. Let's say you beat it with green. We arrange the mask to show that green is more powerful than red.
Oh, okay. So you're defining what is what.
Right. Yeah, that rule applies for the rest of the round.
The hand.
The hand, right. And then later, maybe I play blue and Andrew beats it with purple. Now purple is higher than blue, but we don't know if those two are higher than red and green. or not until that conflict is broken. And you can always beat one person with two and so on. But you're not allowed to do that, like gang up on people, I guess, until there is a known factor in their strength.
Oh, that's cool.
Right. So in this example where I forget what we did, but if green is higher than red, then and I play one red, you cannot beat it with two green. You have to beat it with one green.
Yeah, unless their strength is defined. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, no, the game's really so the powers of the cards are defined during the hand. Yeah, it's a really cool game.
So if you win with it, do I'm guessing you have to go first in the next play.
I mean, it's just like any like shedding game. You just keep going until everybody passes, and then whoever plays the last thing gets to lead whatever they want.
Interesting.
Yeah, we'll try it sometime. It's a quick game. It's an oink game.
Oh, okay. That's really quick then. Or those are generally pretty small and quick. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Anyway, I just thought I'd add it in while it was relevant.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, we love questions.
Yeah, thank you very much for asking. The questions are fun, so please keep them coming.
That brings our first mailbag episode to an end. Please keep those questions coming in. I wanted to thank everyone who sent in questions. If you have comments, suggestions for the show, you can reach us at impromptuboardgamingpodcast@gmail.com. That's all one word, impromptuboardgamingpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.